In the year 2478, mercy had become a luxury few could afford. Commander Rylan Cale of the Terran Vanguard Fleet had survived 3 planetary sieges, 2 mutinies, and the slow death of Earth's blue oceans. War had turned him into a legend or, depending on who you asked, a monster. For 17 years, he had fought the Ilari Dominion, a humanoid species that once shared Earth's diplomatic dreams before the peace treaties shattered like glass under the weight of fear and greed. On the frozen moon of Avon 9, the war had reached its climax. The Terran fleet had driven the last Ilari resistance into their final stronghold, a crystalline fortress embedded deep in the moon's ice crust. Ryland's orders were simple: annihilate them all. And yet, when the smoke cleared and his soldiers combed through the wreckage, Rylan found her. She was barely breathing, an Ilari soldier, armor cracked, pale blue blood seeping onto the ice. Her eyes, luminous silver, opened just long enough to meet his. "Kill me," she whispered through cracked lips. "You've won." Rylan should have done it. His finger hovered over the trigger of his plasma pistol, but something in her tone, calm, almost resigned, froze him. For the first time in years, he saw not an enemy, but a person. "Not today," he murmured. He ordered the medics to stabilize her, ignoring the stares of his officers. In the dim light of his command tent, she regained consciousness. Her name was Lyra Voss, and according to her insignia, she wasn't just a soldier. She was a tactician of the Ilari High Command, one of the minds responsible for orchestrating strikes that had killed thousands of Terrans. "You should have let me die," she said as he stood watch over her. "Maybe," Rylan replied. "But I've killed enough ghosts for one lifetime." For weeks, she remained a prisoner under his supervision as the Terran fleet dismantled the last of Ilari defenses. Yet each time Rylan visited her, something shifted. Lyra was not what he expected. Not cruel, not blind to the cost of war. She spoke of how the Ilari had once believed the Terrans were their allies. How they had been promised peace, until the Terran mining guilds discovered the hypercrystal reserves beneath Ilari worlds. "You came to trade," she said softly one evening, as the stars shimmered through the glass dome above the interrogation chamber. "Then you decided to take." Rylan didn't respond. He had heard the stories before, dismissed them as propaganda. But there was something in her voice that made him wonder what else his orders had buried. "You think your government told you everything?" she asked. "They showed you what they needed you to see. Enough to keep you fighting." He wanted to deny it. But even as she spoke, a memory surfaced. The transmission from High Command that had ordered the bombardment of Series 4, claiming it was an Ilari weapons base. He'd led that strike himself. Later, when the smoke cleared, he had seen what was left. No weapons, just hollowed-out cities filled with civilians who'd had nowhere to run. He hadn't thought of that day in years. Then one night Lyra asked to show him something. Her wrists were bound by photon cuffs, but her voice carried an eerie calm. "You're fighting for a lie, Commander. Let me prove it." Rylan hesitated. But something, perhaps guilt, perhaps curiosity, pushed him to nod. He brought her to the comms chamber, where she accessed the data relay hidden within her uniform. It projected a shimmering image into the air, a fleet of Terran dreadnoughts hovering over Ilari cities before the war had officially begun. "These were taken 3 months before your people claimed we attacked first," she said. The timestamp confirmed it. Terran ships, with orders of engagement pre-signed by the very same High Council that had sworn peace. The war had been engineered from the start. "Your world was dying," Lyra continued. "You needed our hypercrystals to power your new terraforming grids. The Council didn't want to negotiate. They wanted to take. And they needed a reason." Rylan felt his throat tighten. You're lying. I wish I were, she said softly. Do you think I wanted to watch my people burn? I led the first counteroffensive because I thought I was defending my home. You think you've been the hero in this war. But your leaders made you the blade that carved us apart. He staggered back, unable to look at her. Every order he'd obeyed. Every life he'd taken. The victories he'd celebrated. All of it built on deception. Lyra's gaze was sorrowful, not mocking. You showed me mercy, Rylan Kale. I owed you the truth. That night he couldn't sleep. The whispers of the dead filled his mind. The soldiers, the civilians, the children lost beneath orbital bombardments. His uniform felt heavier than ever. When dawn rose over the frozen plains, he made a decision. He went to her cell. I'm releasing you. Lyra blinked in disbelief. You'll be court-martialed. Then so be it. He entered the override code, and the cuffs fell away. Go. Get off this moon before they find out. But Lyra didn't move. Come with me, she said. If what you saw matters, help me bring it to light. The war can still end, truly end. He wanted to. Every part of him wanted to believe it wasn't too late to make things right. But he knew what would happen if he deserted. The Vanguard would hunt them both down. Still he nodded. Together they fled under the cover of the Aurora, stealing a transport ship from the lower docks. For 2 days they crossed the void toward the neutral colonies. For 2 days, Rylan felt the weight of redemption within reach. On the 3rd day, the ship's sensors detected a Terran cruiser closing in. Lyra's face went pale. They found us. Rylan transmitted a false distress signal, hoping to buy time. But before he could finish, the ship shuddered, struck by a plasma round. Fire tore through the cabin. Lyra collapsed against the control console, wounded again. He pulled her into his arms. Stay with me, he said. With trembling fingers, she handed him a small data crystal, glowing faintly blue. The proof, everything you saw, is on this. If we don't make it, don't talk like that. She smiled faintly. You showed mercy to the enemy, Rylan. Don't stop now. Before he could reply, she went still. Rylan sat there, holding her as alarms blared around him, the stars blurring through the viewport. He ejected the escape pod and launched it toward the neutral colonies, data crystal clutched in his fist. Behind him, the transport ship, and the only person who'd ever made him question the truth, vanished in a bloom of light. Weeks later, a transmission echoed across the galactic channels, leaked footage from an anonymous source exposing the Terran High Council's orchestration of the war. The footage included Rylan's voice, recounting everything. The war ended not long after. Treaties were rewritten. Trials were held. Statues of heroes were torn down, including his. And on a quiet, unnamed moon, a man now living under a false name visited a crystal grave embedded in the snow. He placed the insignia of the Ilari High Command at its base and whispered, I didn't save you, Lyra. You saved me. Above him, the sky shimmered, blue and gold, like the colors of a world reborn.